Hi everyone, so in this video I'm going to show you how to crochet these puff stitch flower baby shoes, which are made all in one piece. So these shoes can be made in a number of different sizes, and for all of the information on how to make the different sizes, please see the description box below. So thank you very much for watching, and please make sure to subscribe to my channel for more crochet videos. So to begin our shoes, we're going to start off by making a slip knot. So to do a slip knot, you want to take your yarn and take your finger and wrap the yarn around your finger once and then twice. Then take the first loop and pull it over the second loop, and then take the second loop and pull it all the way over your finger. You then want to take your crochet hook, go in through the space and pull tight. And there you have a slip knot. So once you have your slip knot, we are now going to make our foundation chain, and we are going to chain 9. So chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. And now we are ready to move on to round 1. So we are now on to round 1 of our shoes, and to begin this round we are going to work 1 half double crochet into the third chain from the hook. So here is the first chain from the hook, here is the second, and here is the third. And we're going to go into this chain and work 1 half double crochet. So yarn over and go into the chain, and yarn over and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. So there we have 1 half double crochet. And now we're going to go back down into this exact same chain again and work a second one. So yarn over and go down into this same chain for a second time and work another half double crochet. So there we have 2 half double crochets into the third chain from the hook. And now we're going to do 1 half double crochet into each of the next 5 chains. So into each of the next 5 chains, do 1 half double crochet. So yarn over and go into the next one and do 1 half double crochet. Then yarn over and go into the next chain along and do 1 half double crochet. Then do this into the third one along and the fourth one, and finally the 5th. So there we have 5, and you should find that you have 1 chain left. So 1 chain left at the end of your foundation chain, and into this chain we are going to do 6 half double crochets. So 6 all into this last chain here. So yarn over and go into the chain and do 1. So 1 half double crochet. Then do a second one into the exact same chain. So a second one and then a third. And do this until you have 6. That. So there I have done my 6 half double crochets. And now for the rest of round 1, we are going to begin working along the opposite side of our foundation chain. So we did our slip knot, then we worked chains up, then we did half double crochets down and around. And when we did these 6 in the end, we kind of turned the corner, and now we're going to begin working up along the opposite side of our foundation chain. So we're going to start off by doing 1 half double crochet into each of the next 5 chains. So 5 more half double crochets. So yarn over and go into this first chain here along the opposite side and work 1 half double crochet. Then do 1 half double crochet into the next chain along, and 1 into the next until you have, so there I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you should find that you have one last chain to work into here. So this is our last chain. So this last chain here is actually the third chain from the hook that we started working in at the very beginning. So we worked 2 half double crochets both into this chain. So you can see these 2 half double crochets here, and then the chain 2 that we skipped when we worked into the third chain from the hook. So we skipped the first and second chain from the hook. Those 2 chains actually count as 1 half double crochet. So here we have the equivalent of 3 half double crochets all into this last chain, and we're going to work 3 more into it, and then we will have 6 just like we have at the opposite end. So yarn over and go into the chain and work 1 half double crochet, then go back into it and work a second one, and then finally work a third, like that. And now we're going to finish off the round by working a slip stitch into the top of the chain 2 that we skipped at the beginning. So into the top of the chain 2. So if you are not sure where that chain 2 is, then you can count back your stitches. So you need to count back 22. So count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 and 22. And here you will see that this stitch is the top of the chain 2. And go into this stitch. So insert your hook into the stitch and yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. So work a slip stitch, and it's really important that you work your slip stitches into the right places at the end of every single round, as we need to make sure that our seam at the back stays centered. Otherwise the flower that we do at the very front of the shoe will be off to the side and will not be centered. So make sure that you're always working your slip stitch into the right stitch, and a good way to make sure that you are doing that is to count back. So for this round you need to count back 22. And now we're ready to move on to round 2 of our shoes. So we are now on to round 2, and to begin this round you want to chain 1, and our chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So to begin this round we're going to do 2 double crochets into each of the next 3 stitches. So we're going to do 3 sets of 2 double crochets into each stitch. So yarn over and go down into this very first stitch here. Make sure you're going into this very first one. So go into this one and work 1 double crochet. So yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through 2 more loops. So there we have 1 double crochet, and now we're going to yarn over and go down into the same stitch again for a second time and work a second double crochet. So there we have 2 double crochets both into this first stitch here. So now we need to do 2 double crochets into the next stitch. So I'm going to work 2 double crochets both into this next one along, and then 2 into the next. So like that. So there I have 3 sets of 2 double crochets into each stitch. And now we're going to do 1 double crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. So we're going to do 5 individual double crochets. So go into the next stitch along and do 1 double crochet, and the next one do 1 double crochet into this stitch as well, and keep doing this until you have 5. So like that. So I have my 5 double crochets, and now what we're going to do is we are going to do 2 double crochets into each of the next 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Do 2 double crochets into each of these stitches, and this is going to give us a nice round top or nice round edge. So go into the first stitch and do 2 double crochets both into this one, and then do 2 double crochets both into the next one as well, and 2 into the next one, and continue this until you have 6 sets in total. So like that. And now we're going to do 1 double crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. So go into the next stitch and do 1 double crochet, and do this until you have 5. So 5 double crochets, 1 into each stitch. So like that. So there I have done my 5 double crochets, and now what we're going to do is in each of the next 3 stitches you want to do 2 double crochets into each stitch. So I'm going to go into the next stitch and do 2 double crochets both into this one. So 2 both into the next one there, and then the next one along, and then the third one. So there is my second set, and there is my third. So there I have 1, 2 and 3 sets of 2 double crochets into each stitch, and it may look like you need to go into this last stitch here, but you don't. Don't go into this last one, as we have the double crochets for that stitch over here. And now we're going to go into the very first double crochet of the round and work a slip stitch. So here is our first double crochet, and like I said, it's really important that you work your slip stitches into the right stitch. So if you like, you can count back and you should have 34 stitches. So 34 in total, and if you do count back, you should get to this stitch here and then work a slip stitch into this one, and you can see that our seam is staying nice and centered. So there we have round 2 completed, and we're ready to move on to round 3. So we are now on to round 3, and to begin this round you want to chain 1, and this chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So now round 3 is very simple. We are just going to do 1/2 double crochet into each stitch around. So into every single stitch we're going to do 1/2 double crochet. But in this round we're going to do something a little bit different, and we are going to work into only the back loop of each stitch. So if you look at our stitches here, each stitch has a front loop, which is here, and then a back loop, which is there. So front and a back, and a front and a back. And usually when we crochet, we go through both of these loops. So we insert our hook through both the front and the back loop of each stitch. But for this round and this round only, we're just going to go through the back loop of each stitch. And by doing that, that is going to bring the top of our shoe away from the sole. So we're going to do 1/2 double crochet into the back loop of each stitch around. So to begin this round, you want to yarn over and go down into the very first stitch here. So go down into this first stitch. So go down into the first one and go just down into the back loop of this stitch. Pull up a loop and pull through all 3 loops. So 1/2 double crochet, then yarn over and work 1/2 double crochet into the back loop of the next stitch as well. Then yarn over and work 1 half double crochet into the back loop of the next one. Then work 1 half double crochet into the back loop of the next stitch. See, we're just going through the back loop only, and continue this all the way around for round 3. So I'm just coming to the end of round 3, and I have done 1 half double crochet into each stitch, and you can see that by going into the back loops only you get this really nice ridge, and at the end of this round you should still have 34 stitches around, and that does not include the chain 1. The chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so you should have 34 half double crochets around. And I would highly recommend that you go back and check that you do have the right number. So you should have 34. And if you go back and check, you should see that this here is the first half double crochet of the round. And we're going to go into that stitch and work a slip stitch. So it's important to make sure that you're going into the right stitch. And now we are ready to move on to round 4 of our shoes. So we are now on to round 4, and to begin this round you want to chain 1, and this chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So now to begin round 4 we're going to do 1 half double crochet into each of the next 9 stitches. So 9 half double crochets. So yarn over and go down into this very first stitch here, and I just wanted to show you, this may help with your other crochet projects as well, not only these shoes, but if you work into this stitch here, so say if you work into this little one here, then you will not work into this one at the end, but if you don't work into this one and you start off by working into this one, then you will work into this stitch, and it's all to do with the slip stitch. So if you work into this little one right underneath the chain 1, then you will end up not working into this one at the end, but if you start working in this one and skip the little one, then you will have to work into this one here. So that is just the way that the slip stitch works. So that's just a little tip that I wanted to share with you, which may help you with your other crochet projects as well. And it's especially important to remember for these shoes, as we need our seam to stay centered. So we're going to start off by working 9 half double crochets. So yarn over and we're going down into the first stitch here and work 1 half double crochet. Then do 1 into the next one along, 1 into the third one along, 1 half double crochet into the fourth and the fifth, and do this until you have 9. So there I have my 9 half double crochets, and we're now going to move on to closing up the toe of the shoe for this round. So to do that, we're going to use a stitch called 2 double crochets together. So when we do 2 double crochets together, we're effectively turning 2 stitches into 1. So we're going to do 2 double crochets, 1 into each stitch, but we're not going to complete either of them, and then we're going to complete them both together at the same time. So we're going to start off by working our first set of 2 double crochets together, and you want to yarn over and go into the next stitch and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2 loops as you would with a normal double crochet. But usually we would yarn over and pull through these 2 loops here, but you don't want to do that. You want to leave this double crochet incomplete and move on to the second one. So yarn over and go into the next stitch, pull up a loop and pull through 2 loops. So there I have a second incomplete double crochet. You can see the 2 of them here, and you should have 3 loops on your hook, and yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And there we have done 2 double crochets together and turned 2 stitches into 1. And for this round we're going to do 8 sets of 2 double crochets together. So we have done our first one, so we're going to move on to the second one. So yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop and pull through 2 loops. Then move on to the second double crochet, yarn over, go into the stitch, pull up a loop and pull through 2 loops. Then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. So there we have a second set of 2 double crochets together. So we need to do 6 more. So I'm going to work my third set. And my fourth. And do this until you have 6. So there we have our 8 sets, and you can see that we are starting to close up the toe of the shoe. So now to finish off this round, you want to do 9 half double crochets. So 1 half double crochet into each of the next 9 stitches. So work 9 half double crochets, so like that. So there I have 9 half double crochets, and now to finish off the round we're going to do a slip stitch into the top of this stitch here. So into the top of the very first half double crochet that we worked. Make sure that you're not going into the chain 1, that you're going into the very first half double crochet. And there we have round 4 completed, and we're ready to move on to round 5. So we are now on to round 5 of our shoes, and we're going to start off this round by chaining 1, and this chain 1 does not count as a stitch. And now to begin this round you want to do 9 half double crochets. So 1 half double crochet into each of the next 9 stitches. So yarn over and go down into the first one, and do 1 half double crochet and then 1 into the second one along, and do this until you have 9. So once you have those 9 half double crochets, we are now going to do 2 double crochets together. So just as we did last round, we're going to do 2 double crochets together. So yarn over and go into the next stitch and pull up a loop and pull through 2 loops. Then yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops. And now here we are at our last step of the 2 double crochets together, and to finish the stitch we need to yarn over and pull through these 3 loops. But what we are going to do now is we are actually going to change colours. So in a second, the next thing that we are going to do is going to be our puff stitch flower. So we're going to move on to our puff stitch flower, and I want my flower to be in a different colour. I'm going to do it in this green. So if you want your flower to be in a different colour, you want to change colours now whilst doing the 2 double crochets together, so that you have your new colour ready to use to do your flower in. And if you don't want to have a different coloured flower, if you want your flower to be in the same colour as the rest of your shoe, then just yarn over and pull through these 3 loops here, and then just move on to the flower. But if you do want your flower to be in a different colour, then now is the time to change. So drop the yarn that you were using right before this last step of the 2 double crochets together, and take your new colour. And you don't need very much of this colour, so it's a good time to use up all of your scraps or your ends. So take your new colour, place it over the end of your crochet hook and pull it through. And there we have completed the stitch. We have completed the 2 double crochets together and also changed colours at the same time. And now we have this new colour here ready to use. And you do not want to cut the yarn that you were using, so leave this just as it is, leave it attached to the ball, as we're going to pick this back up in a second, as we are only doing the flower in a different colour. So leave it as it is, and we're ready to move on to the flower. So to begin the flower, you want to chain 3. So chain 1, 2 and 3. And if you're not using a new colour, like I said, just finish your 2 double crochets together and then just chain 3. And we're now going to go down into this first chain here, so the first chain that you worked, and work a puff stitch. So we're going to work our first puff stitch. So to do a puff stitch, you want to yarn over and go into the chain and pull up a loop, then yarn over, go back into the same chain again and pull up a loop for a second time, yarn over, go into the same chain, pull up a loop for a third time, yarn over, go into the chain, pull up a loop for a fourth time, and finally do that for a fifth time. So we're yarning over, going into the chain and pulling up a loop 5 times, and you may need to kind of pull this end here if you changed colours, otherwise your chain will stretch. So there we have the start of our puff stitch, and usually to finish this stitch we would yarn over and pull through all of these loops, and there we would have completed the puff stitch. But we are not going to do that. We're going to leave this puff stitch incomplete and leave it on our crochet hook and move on to the next one. And we're going to work our next puff stitch of our puff stitch flower into this stitch here. So this is the next stitch at the front of our shoe. So you can see we worked into this one, and this is the next one along that we have not worked into. And we're going to go into this stitch and work a puff stitch just as we did this one. So yarn over, go into the stitch and pull up a loop 5 times. So you want to go into this next stitch along, yarn over, go into the stitch, and you also need to make sure that you are working over your end. So working over the end of the colour that you used before and the colour that you are going to pick back up in a second. You need to make sure that you are working over this. So yarn over, go into the stitch, make sure you're working over your end and pull up a loop. Yarn over, go into the same stitch a second time. Then do the same thing a third time, then a fourth, and finally a fifth. So you're doing the same thing, yarn over, go into the stitch and pull up a loop 5 times. And remember, you must always work over this end. So there we have 2 incomplete puff stitches on our crochet hook. And we're not going to complete this one either. We're going to leave this second puff stitch incomplete and move on to the third one. And we're going to work our third one into this stitch. So we're going to skip the next 2 stitches. So skip this one and this one. And then into this stitch, we're going to do a third puff stitch in the exact same way as before. So yarn over, skip 2 stitches and go into the next stitch. And you must make sure that you are working over your end again. You must make sure that you work over this end, pull up a loop, then do this a second time. And try not to work too tight when you do these puff stitches. Try to work a little bit loosely, and that will make it easier in a second when we finish them. So now go into the stitch and pull up a third time, then a fourth. And if you're using one of these crochet hooks with the grips, this can be a little bit tricky as you don't have much room. So I really should have changed to a different crochet hook that did not have the grips, but I didn't, so I'm finding it a little bit tricky. But you can do that if you like, change to one without the grips, and then you will have much more room. And then yarn over, go into the stitch and pull up a loop for a 5th and final time, making sure that you are still working over your end. So you still must be working over this end here. So now we have 3 incomplete puff stitches on our crochet hook, and the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to yarn over and pull through every single loop on our hook. So we're going to pull through all of these. So this can be a very tricky step, so you need to take it really slowly. So yarn over and go through the loops really slowly. And like I said, this can be very tricky. So sometimes it's good just to take it a stitch at a time. So just go through them nice and slow. So there's one, and now I'm going to pull through this next puff stitch here. And again, you must make sure that you go really slow because you don't want to drop your loop and then have to start again. And then we're going to go through this third and final one, and this is often the trickiest. So go through this third and final puff stitch slowly, like that. So there I have pulled through every single loop on my crochet hook, and now you want to pull your yarn nice and tight. So pull this nice and tight like this, and you may want to pull this little end and this end over here to make sure that everything is straightened out. And then we're going to chain 2. So chain 1 and 2, and do these chains nice and tight, as this is going to create the little opening of our flower, so the center of our flower. So there you can see we have started our puff stitch flower, and now we're going to go into this hole here and work another puff stitch. So yarn over, go into the hole, pull up a loop, and do this 5 times. And remember, try not to work too tight. So there's 4 and 5. And then with this puff stitch, we're actually going to complete it. We're going to yarn over and pull through all of the loops on our hook. Again, try and do this nice and slow. So pull through every single loop. And now we're going to chain 2. So chain 1 and 2, and then to finish off this flower, we're going to go back into the center again and work one final puff stitch. So work a 5th and final puff stitch. So yarn over, go into the center, pull up a loop, do that a 2nd time, a 3rd, 4th, and so like that. So there we have started our last puff stitch, and you can see our flower is really starting to form. And now what we would usually do is we would usually yarn over and pull through all of these loops to complete the puff stitch and to complete the flower. But we're going to change colours back to the colour that we were using previously whilst doing this last step. So you want to drop the yarn that you were using and then take your new colour, and as you worked over it, it should be here ready to pick up. That's why it's really important to work over your end, as you need it here ready to pick up. And if you didn't change colours, then just yarn over and pull through all of these loops. But if you did change colours, pick up the new colour or the old colour and yarn over and pull through all of the loops on your hook using this colour. And it's almost a little bit easier when you're pulling through with a different colour, as it's easier to see the stitches. So like that. So there we have completed the stitch and the flower using your old colour. So there we have our little puff stitch flower, and you can now fasten off the colour that you were using to do the flower, and make sure that you leave a tail to weave in later. And you may need to pull this end tight to get this chain to go nice and small, and then just weave those ends into the inside of your shoes. And we're ready to move on with the rest of the round. So to create your puff stitch flower, you want to change colours whilst doing the set of 2 double crochets together, then chain 3, then do a puff stitch into the 3rd chain or the first chain that you worked, so the 3rd one down, Then go into the next stitch and do a puff stitch, and you are not completing these puff stitches. Then skip 2 stitches and work this puff stitch here into the next stitch, and then yarn over and pull through every single loop on your hook. Pull your work nice and tight and chain 2, and then go into the center and do a puff stitch, and then yarn over and pull through all of the loops on your hook. So complete that puff stitch, then chain 2 again, and then work 1/5 and final puff stitch into the center, and then right before you finish the puff stitch, drop the yarn that you were using and pick up the color you were using before, and yarn over and pull through all of the loops using that new color, and you can then fasten off the color that you were using. And to do a puff stitch, you yarn over and go into the stitch and pull up a loop 5 times. So whenever you do a puff stitch, that is what you need to do. So we have finished our flower, and now we are going to move on, and we're going to do 2 double crochets together. So just as we did before. So yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. So 2 double crochets together. And then to finish off the round, you want to do 1 half double crochet into each of the next 9 stitches. So 9 more half double crochets. So I have just finished working those 9 half double crochets, and now to finish off the round, you want to do a slip stitch into the first half double crochet that you worked. And now we have completed the round, and you can see that we have the puff stitch flower in the center front of the shoe. And if you find that your flower is not centered, that will be because your seam at the back is not centered. So you need to go back and work out why your seam is going to either side. So it's probably that you're not working your first stitch of the round into the right stitch, or that you're not working your slip stitch into the right stitch. So go back and correct that, and try to get your seam as centered as possible, and then your flower will end up being in the center. And we are now ready to move on to round 6, which is the last round. So to begin round 6, you want to chain 1, and this does not count as a stitch. And we're now going to do 9 half double crochets. So work 1 half double crochet into each of the next 9 stitches. So I have finished working my 9 half double crochets, and now we are going to close up the top of the shoe for this round. And to do that, we're going to do 3 sets of 2 half double crochets together. So when we do 2 half double crochets together, we're doing the same thing as we do when we do 2 double crochets together. So we're turning 2 stitches into 1, but instead of using double crochets, we're going to use half double crochets. So it's using the exact same method, just half double crochets. So we're going to start off by yarning over and going into this next stitch here as we would with a normal half double crochet, and yarning over and pulling up a loop. But you do not want to complete the half double crochet, so leave this stitch incomplete and move on to the second half double crochet. And we're going to work our second half double crochet into the top of this stitch here, so into the top of the flower. So yarn over and go into the top here, anywhere along the top, and pull up a loop. So there we have 2 incomplete half double crochets, and yarn over and pull through every loop on your hook. And there we have completed 2 half double crochets together, and we need to do 2 more sets. So yarn over and go into this next stitch here. You want to go into this next stitch. So yarn over, go into the stitch and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and go into this next stitch here along the top. So in the very top of your flower, go into here and pull up a loop. So there we have 2 incomplete half double crochets, and yarn over and pull through all of the loops on your hook. So there we have 2 sets of 2 half double crochets together, and we need to work a third and final set. So yarn over, and we're going to go into the next stitch and pull up a loop, and then our final one is going to be worked into this last stitch here. So yarn over, go into the last stitch, pull up a loop and pull through every loop on your hook. So there we have completed 3 half double crochets together, and you can see that we have closed up the top of our shoe for this round. And now we are going to do 9 half double crochets. So do 1 half double crochet into each of the next 9 stitches to finish this round. I have finished doing those 9 half double crochets, and this is what my shoe looks like. And to finish off the round, I'm going to do a slip stitch into the first half double crochet that we worked. And there we have completed our shoe. And the very last thing that we need to do is we're going to do 1 slip stitch into each stitch around the opening. And what this is going to do is this is going to make the opening of our shoe look nice and neat and tidy, but it's also going to make it a lot smaller. So it's going to close up the opening more, so it's not quite as big. So you need to go into the next stitch and do 1 slip stitch, then work a slip stitch into the next stitch, and then a slip stitch into the next one, and do this all the way around. And when you are doing this, you must be very careful not to work your slip stitches too tight. If you work them too tightly, then the opening will be too small to get it on your baby's foot. So try and work them kind of loose. So take your yarn from up here and pull it through, and do not pull too tight. And that is how you can do a looser slip stitch. So just do 1 slip stitch into each stitch around. Like that. So I have done slip stitches all the way around, and my opening is now the size that I want it, and you get this nice neat effect. And you want to go into the very first stitch that you worked your slip stitch into, and then fasten off. So pull your yarn out and your hook and cut your yarn, and we have finished our little puff stitch shoe. If you look at the front of your shoe, if you changed colours for your flower, you will get these little sections up here, which is where you changed colours. And now if you don't want them, you can either just work your flower in the exact same colour as the rest of your shoe, or you can take a yarn needle and a piece of yarn in the same colour as the base of your shoe and just go over those ends using that piece of yarn, and that will cover it up. So just take the yarn and the yarn needle and kind of just cover it up using the yarn. That is what I did for the pink and blue pairs that you will have seen at the beginning of the video, and you don't see them, you don't see the little ends. So I have finished making my shoes, and I made a blue pair and a pink pair. And if you changed colours for the flower and you find that you can see some of the colour change, so like here and here is where we changed colours, that is unavoidable. You can't not have that, but you can take a piece of yarn in the same colour and kind of work over it. So weave over it to cover it up. So that is what I did for this one here. I worked over it, and now you cannot see it at all. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it easy to follow. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel for more crochet videos, and thanks again for watching. Bye!